And so you might well think that you could charge people based on their height, and it seems pretty unlikely that someone would like stunt their growth voluntarily in order to avoid paying the tax, right? So more broadly and perhaps seriously, there's lots of policy areas that can be thought of exactly in these terms. So you don't want to distort people's decisions to work and save and stuff like that by taxing them, but you do want to redistribute. And so if we can use some objective characteristics of people, that's much more efficient. So one example of that is affirmative action. So you might think that if we do affirmative action based on the parent's income, that will give parents an incentive not to work very hard and not to earn more money, because then their kid will have a harder time getting into school, right? On the other hand, if you do it on the basis of race, it's pretty darn hard for people to change their racial background based on affirmative action, right? And so affirmative action might be an efficient form of third-degree price discrimination. Yeah, go ahead.
Two questions. How does eye color affect anything?
How does it affect income?
Yeah, that's the first question.
What's the mechanism through which it affects income?
I mean, you mentioned that height affects your earning capabilities, right?
Yeah.
How does eye color determine?
Same thing.
In what way?
People are more likely to hire blue-eyed people. I mean, another thing that they could just judge people on is how good-looking they are, right? They could have someone judge how good-looking you are. That might be more subjective and therefore harder to do. But I mean, that's basically, these things are all sort of proxies for that. Or blonde people could be charged more.
The second question, doesn't this not account for luck? I think because I feel some
what?
I feel you can get paid a lot of money for a job because you got lucky into getting that job, not necessarily that it had anything to do with your earning capability. If you work at an investment bank, you get lucky, I guess, with certain investments.
Yeah, that's true. So that's why it's hard to figure out how much people earn. But there are still things that do a very good job predicting it. So it's not all. I mean, everything is some form of luck. The question is, some elements of luck, like ending up being tall, we can observe. Other aspects of luck are harder to observe, right? And harder to distinguish from effort. Yeah, go ahead.
This is kind of a weird question, but I know in science, when you do energy transfers, you inherently lose 10% or whatever. I realize it's broad and not exactly accurate.
Yeah.
Is there a similar thing in economics when you do transfers, when you're trying to redistribute wealth, where it's inherently inefficient because you don't know this or you don't know that, or there's just...
Yeah, that's sort of what all this information stuff is about. But it depends on the situation. So there's, different things that are closer to being efficient and how efficient it can get. It's like the engine thing that you're describing. The efficiency depends on the elasticities of the information, and we'll talk a lot about that, in the lecture on redistribution on Tuesday. So, another example is, in the tax code, there's all these complicated things about deductions for various things. So if you're handicapped, you get subsidies. If you're a single mother, you get subsidies. If you're unemployed, you get subsidies. Because we think that those things are relatively hard to change, or people are unlikely to change them in response to financial incentives, if that's not true, that's not going to be a very effective policy. But if that's true, then that might be a good way to target it to reduce the incentives for people not to work. So basically, economists often oppose these types of policies. They say, look, get rid of all the deductions, just give a flat thing, don't do all these things. But that's actually a little bit silly, because in order to do that, we're going to have more progressive taxes, higher tax rates, and that will maybe discourage people from working. So really, there's a trade-off here. You have to think about what are the things that indicate that you are poor, but which you can't change very much. And those are the things that we want to redistribute to. Also, things that indicate that you're rich, but you can't change very much, we'd want to redistribute from. Okay. That's it. Great. And so good luck reviewing.